Hey fellas, Onus here, and welcome back to With a Y. You guys ever heard of like this young man you see on the screen right now? I think his name's Timothée Chalamet. You guys probably know what this video is about. This is an interview he did with Variety and Matthew McConaughey, like a town hall style thing around 2 weeks ago. And there was a specific clip going around of him making comments about like the art forms of ballet and opera being dying arts. Before we get any further, if you haven't seen that clip, I wanted to play it like in its full, like with a little extra context on either side of what is going around.
Because I admire people, and I've done it myself, to go on a talk show and go, hey, we got to keep movie theaters alive. You know, we got to keep this genre alive. And another part of me feels like if people want to see it like Barbie, like Oppenheimer, they're going to go see it and go out of their way to be loud and proud about it. And I don't want to be working in ballet or opera or, you know, things where it's like, hey, keep this thing alive, even though no one cares about this anymore. All respect to the ballet and opera people out there. I just lost 14 cents in viewership, but damn, I just took shots for no reason.
That's not a shot. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
So this is my reading of what we just watched. This is like towards the end of like a 50-minute public town hall where he's like been talking with someone else for about an hour, and he gets into these comments like jumping off like a different talking point they were having. And the point it seemed like he was trying to make is that he doesn't want to be in like a medium or like work in art that is like struggling and on life support to keep its front doors open and have people interested. You have to put like major resources into not just making people aware that like your thing exists as an option that they can come and watch, peruse, whatever it is, but you have to like do really significant outreach to try and convince them. And the examples he uses of arts that are currently in that phase where they have to get funding where they can are probably hugely influential throughout history, but in the modern day aren't like one of the de facto forms of mass media or what equated to that in the time of like, you know, a few centuries ago. He uses ballet and opera, and I think the argument here, I might even argue, is that the poor wording was like in saying nobody cares. Whether he meant that literally, I severely doubt he did, but even still, and then calling them like dying arts. He's saying he doesn't want to be in that position, but the sentences before like he gets to the ballet and opera of it all almost seems like he feels like he's already in like the early stages of that, and he's like doing everything he can to like claw tooth and nail to keep like a theater experience alive. Like theaters being dead and or dying has been like a talking point for like the last few years, especially since COVID. And he's right, like you have actors going on interviews and like everywhere they can asking people to please go to support your local theater. And the media marketing blitz he did for Marty Supreme, it was like huge. It was like everywhere on the internet, and Marty Supreme did well from my understanding, but I don't know like after the advertising budget if it made its money back. And with as like effective of a marketing campaign as that was in the time, even that movie like wasn't able to break even, or it's cutting it close. I can see like maybe Timothée in his position feels like movies are heading that way. Not so much that like ballet and opera are dying and it sucks, but like he doesn't want that to happen to the thing that he loves. Given I'm not his head, I don't know the guy. The thing is like my interest in movies is at an all-time low. I really only get out there as like a social experience to do something with my friends and then talk about it afterwards, which you can do with like most any movies, but the social aspect of it kind of comes first for me. I've never been super into ballet and opera. Obviously, like I have a lot of respect for them as mediums. It's just like not something that's ever been like hugely in my interest. And this went everywhere and absolutely exploded. Having like a quote of a guy calling like these really classic forms of creativity dying art forms and saying nobody cares. Great quotables, great fucking article headlines, I'll tell you that. And to anybody who's like into opera and ballet that was like really fucking put off by those comments, I don't blame him, man. I don't like when a guy talks about like the niche thing I like either. For me, like being an opera or ballet is most analogous to, forgive me for this comparison, being in a really niche fandom that never gets new fan works. Like you are deeply in love with this thing, but there is so small community to be like making new contributions to it. And there's like no cultural identity of it just being a thing that's good and can be put safely on your list of things that you'll get around to eventually because you heard it's good. You have to like fight and convince someone to give this thing you like a try. I know what that aspect of it is like, and to feel like it's been so brazenly dismissed, it's hard not to relate and understand people's reactions. With like my personal takeaway of what Timothée was saying here, it's like hard for me to like totally disagree with like the sentiment of it, because I don't think anybody wants to work and be really passionate about something and see like it struggle along to even be a thing they can continue to do and like like see other people partake in. There's the singer Adela who has like her roots in ballet. I'm not super familiar with her, but she got asked by TMZ while she was leaving the airport and had like a really well put together answer about her thoughts on Timothee's comments. I think people are maybe blowing it out of proportion. I don't think he meant it like that. Like, I think it's fine. He's not wrong. It is kind of a dying form. It's sad. If anything, he just highlighted that. I think people are very upset, but it's like, as a ballerina, it kind of is. People should be going to the ballet more. Honestly, maybe this is good publicity. I think he was just talking about people going to the movies and he wants that to still be a thing, and I agree. Still go out to see things. All of it should be supported. I don't think he meant any harm. I'm not, but I understand how people might be hurt by it. And yeah, like, I pretty much totally agree. Like, I understand why those comments would rub anybody who's into these things the wrong way. Like, I think the conversation that, like, broadly should be happening, and is happening to an extent because of this, is that art should be respected and preserved, and we should try to nurture these things, especially against, like, the winds of time where everything's destined to change. And market conditions aren't conducive enough to just supporting the art for art's sake. And instead it turned into like an us versus them where fucking my art form's better than yours. Yours sucks and it's dying because it sucks. That's the thing about death in general. It's like, it's not a thing that anybody necessarily deserves. I mean, maybe some people, but not what we're talking about. But it is a thing that happens to everybody, and the circumstances that and how it happened are always different. I saw this one clip on my TikTok from a guy who I believe is like an opera musician.
Timothée Chalamet has been in movies that have been seen by millions of people. And the truth is that opera and ballet companies actually do need our support in order to continue providing the excellence in art that they do. And this thing that I want to say is not meant to be an insult, because it would be true of anyone, but it's just reality. In 200 years, I suspect that there will be very few people on this planet who know the name Timothée Chalamet. But Puccini will still be loved by millions.
Okay, so when he first threw out that name, I didn't know who Puccini was. I'm gonna be honest, I still kind of don't, but I had a hunch that he was probably a really seminal artist in his craft, and he has made like works that have been consumed by millions of people across like the decades, and the works he has created probably have like huge intangible influence over a bunch of things that I like and that I am living in the downstream effects of without ever like consciously realizing. Because, you know, that's like how art and influence works. And look, redoing a little reading about him, that seems to be the case. But my first reaction was, who the fuck is Puccini? Which, kind of to this guy's point, Puccini's name is probably bigger than Chalamet's name will be in the same amount of time since Puccini's passing. But this discussion of the name itself is mostly kept alive in niches. We'll call them ball knowers for the sake of this argument. Like, I watched a video essay that talked about all the connections between the story of Twin Peaks and, get this, the story of Deltarune. And I'm sure like some of that inspiration was very direct, but my takeaway from it was more like Twin Peaks having a more direct effect on the Earthbound series, and the Earthbound series taking that DNA and having the effect it did on a guy like Toby Fox to make the game he's making now. I think the way that people live for hundreds of years and how mediums like are still kept alive is less through like individual names like a Timothée Chalamet or a Puccini in this case for opera, and more in like the kind of soft inspiration, and more in like the less explainable inspirations you get from like all the creative works and everything you've experienced as a human getting passed on endlessly, the cycle repeating, like technically at all times. Like, by watching this video, in some small cognitive way, I've altered like maybe a single brain cell or wrinkle on your lobes, and that is now part of your sum total human experience that, when you go forward, will in some small way have been influenced by, probably not majorly, but like anything you go on to make will now be a result of the brain chemistry you have from like somehow incorporating me into your mind at all. You have perceived me, therefore you have been affected by me. And this goes both ways. One thing I did want to pop in with is, while there's been like this social media shitstorm around Timothée, he has been like over in fucking China just doing like bits for a different promo tour, I think. I could like show y'all like some people I think having just straight up ridiculous takes, but instead I'm gonna talk about a lot of it in the abstract because I don't want to pin this on like any one individual creator. Like I've already explained, I can understand people being hurt by like what Timothée said if it's like about something they really care about, and they might lash out in ways that like given it another day's thought they might have like cooled down on. Very human behavior right there. And I'd like to think that the greatest outcome of this all is that like opera and ballet and hopefully the these kind of so-called finer arts, they're just more niche in my opinion, get like recognition, and like people, if they did like those things, want to actively support them and go out like into the world to experience them and contribute to the keeping alive of those arts. But because of it being attached to Timothée Chalamet, it got very parasocial very quickly. Like you had people having takes on the fact that his mother was like in ballet, his grandmother was, so was his sister, so how could he say these things about ballet, like having grown up around it? And with that in mind, in other interviews, Timothée Chalamet said that for researching his role in Marty Supreme, he had studied the movements of certain like ballet dancers to like inspire the physicality. And you had people speculating that he was like somehow disrespecting his fucking family and the people who worked on that shit in his life. And to me, like the more charitable read on that would be like, you might have been ascribing too much negative intention. Like it seems like he has some reverence for these art forms, even if he doesn't want the art form he's in to be in like the literal state that those things are, relegated to smaller, nicher audiences. A thing that on some level he probably sees as happening to film right now. There was like people saying that he was like taking shots at Tom Holland, who has like some dance roots, because he was like passed over for the role of Spider-Man and it just turned into like a drama hog thing really fucking quickly. I saw people in TikTok comments accusing people trying to like say that he's not necessarily wrong on the art forms of opera and ballet being underfunded and needing more support. And then they'd like get called just fucking MAGA defenders, or like, you definitely voted for Trump. And I'm like, what the fuck are we talking about? I guess like overall, the things I saw Timothée as having talked about are the things that happen to all art, all like mediums, and over time, like hell, even just like normal professions. Like for a fucking Zoomer Gen Z example, I grew up like watching YouTube long form, the 5x4 16.9 horizontal video feed, where you have to click on the thumbnail to watch it, like this one. A lot of people's time is now no longer being used to watch like long form videos. They're like doing their nightly doom scroll. Short form YouTube content, TikTok, Instagram Reels, on some level, it does bite into like the finite amount of time people would have to watch the things I like to make, which are these types of videos. Broadly, YouTube and online video is biting into fucking movies. It's biting into the amount of time people spend watching movies or even TV shows. And don't even get me like started on what streaming does. I wouldn't say that the long form YouTube video is by any means like a dying art form or some shit, but like even with time, within my lifetime, like the pressures in the market that it exists in have changed so drastically, and people's viewing habits have as well. Like this discussion is just like what happens to every kind of... The discussion I think we're having is just one that we can for basically any creative medium that's ever existed. Like there's the discussion of like, is AI gonna replace what I do as well? And I think the takeaway is one that like a lot of people tend to have, that in the face of like operas and ballet not being like the juggernauts of art that they were like some few hundred years ago, they persist anyways. Dying is not dead. Room can be made for these nicher things to exist and thrive in this new environment that they're in, within their means, if they are given like the actual time and money for it. It's just that like grants by the government don't get really committed to anymore for the arts. So these institutions who like have been around for ages and are trying to find out their next steps, figure out what comes next for them, they have to do like more and more out there shit. Anyways, that's all I got. Thank you to Koei Tecmo for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check out Fatal Frame 2 Remake at the first link in the description. Anyways, piss off.